Oh, she's running late, sorry.
Oh, okay,
She's
no, I'm
running
just
late.
kidding. I'm writing down his attendance, so. Future attendance.
I'm gonna miss her, right?
Have a moment of
Oh,
breathing.
man, I've been all up the way too long. Roberta Gilmore.
I thought the whole,
Oh,
the
you are.
whole premise of every county gets something was a little bit weird. Because I know the band really doesn't go to library pretty well. 10.5 million, that's a big. Don't be jealous.
We're not
Don't be
recording, you
jealous,
don't have to
be jealous,
whisper.
don't be jealous.
Ben, tell us what
But-
you really think.
There are 2 libraries that are getting bathrooms. That didn't have bathrooms.
No, I think
So
there, I think there was
that's-
really money well spent in many.
But they
places.
didn't even have a bathroom.
Yeah, I'm fine
Yeah.
with Grand Island.
That's
I
like
just- I
wastewater
just thought
and a
everybody has
whole,
to get-
like, yeah.
I thought county by county thing was weird, just because. But, oh, I know.
Right, because it's like,
There's-
shouldn't
there's
it be
some
just
poor
based
places
on
in
the
need
need?
Anything.
near, I mean, Mansion, and the other library in Bennington County is beautiful, it's pretty new.
Possibly, I didn't print that out.
I think there was one. South of Shelburne. Charlotte, yeah, I think there was a Charlotte one. But I could be wrong. Well, I think that's right.
Poo to them.
There might be a little library or something there. No, it's a
No, it's
It's a very nice library.
All right,
Yeah.
well, don't quote me. It's right.
Maybe it was like Saint George.
I don't think they're even-
Oh, there you, yeah, it starts.
I don't even know.
Was that not, was that
Addison
Addison?
County? No.
We've got 1 minute to be
It's the one
unrolled.
below.
One more unrolled.
Huntington House? Or is it more?
Huntington's
central?
in. Huntington, I think, is in. Chittenden. Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna get this stuff going, so.
Let's start.
That's me. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Library trustees, October 3rd.
I'm taking care of it.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, it's kind of cool, I feel like I've been in
All good.
another.
Are
universe.
there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Roberta wanted me to add the CD coming, due.
Right.
And so a discussion of that.
Under the financial report or new business?
I put it under new business.
Okay.
So maturing CD.
Maturing CD. Anyone else?
We can put it under financial if we think. It's not better.
Okay, we'll
let's
put it under,
financial.
okay,
Maybe they'd look it out.
okay, anything else?
Well, Melissa, the revision of the evaluation.
It's on there.
That's in there,
I know, but she's.
but we know what she wants revised.
Right, so we
Oh,
can
we do.
still discuss it, yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, nay? Okay, approved. The financial report. Should we switch that?
Maybe.
Okay, so we'll switch, could we have librarians report then?
Oh, sure.
Put you on the spot, sorry.
I don't have a whole lot for this month. It's been pretty quiet. As we all know, we did not get the grant. Grand Isle got the grant though, and they're gonna get a whole new building, and that will be good for them. So, I did email the Grand Isle librarian to say congratulations and we look forward to seeing your building. And I think we should probably send an email to the architect and the builder as well, but I don't know if that should come from me or if it should come from a trustee, just thanking them for all their time and kind of pro bono work that they did for us.
We might need to modify what we say to them, depending on whether we want to move forward with some of so we should decide that and then we can send something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna interrupt your report, but if it's not too late, I'd like to add something to the agenda, which it might be too late to do, but let Carolyn finish her report.
Okay. Um. We've begun to slow down a little bit and just working on smaller projects in weeding. Um, there is a list of the upcoming programs for this month. And I do want to mention that our book club this month is another Vermont Reads program. We're doing the one from last year. And we actually paired it with our talk that we had about the queer archives down in Burlington. And because we combine these two programs, we got the talk for free, which is
Good.
nice. Unfortunately, nobody came to it, but that's okay. Trunk or treat is coming up at the end of the month in Alberg again, so we'll give away books
The books.
to the
Yeah.
kids. If anybody wants to come and stand with me, you're more than welcome to. It's insane and fun and over in 2 hours, so
Where do they do that?
in the firehouse in Alberg, yeah. And that's all I have, I think.
May I ask you a question?
Of course.
No. The. We had to take our roof. Is that coming up in a report somewhere? No. Our
The roof stuff,
repair,
yeah,
it
is in
is?
the building
Okay,
report,
okay.
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. Well, that's next.
Oh, yeah, roof will schedule
Can I
work
ask
after
you
select.
The weeding, you're
Mm-hmm.
the stacks, the
Mhm.
books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Not the gardens.
Not the, no, I'm not touching the plants, don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, then let's move on to the building report.
All right, well, the easy one is that the sink and toilet was fixed today.
Yeah.
So, that's great. We got a new faucet and handles replaced on the sink, so no more leaking.
Great.
He also replaced some extra pipe, something that was really old and probably original to the building. And then the toilet needed a gasket replaced because it was sometimes very, very hard to flush and works like a charm. So that is all good.
Do we know what was it Murray Plumbing?
No, it
Somebody else?
was,
Okay.
Island Plumbing.
Do we know what the cost is?
Not yet. He's gonna work on an invoice, hopefully be here
Okay,
by the beginning of next week.
okay.
Very pleasant.
Oh, yeah, he's very nice. Unfortunately, he was there for longer than expected. He ran into some problems with one of the handles. But
So it may cost more than we were expecting.
Just
Yeah.
a note, and I know that you guys are on top of this, the library maintenance budget is always really small. So one
Mhm.
repair is just gonna wipe it away. We had
Yeah.
2,000, we spent 1,200 on the AC cleaning.
yeah,
I assume it's gonna be I don't know, several hundred, no. idea.
probably, yeah.
So we could be close to the end of that budget, which will lead you
Yeah.
to the next question about the roof. right?
Yeah, so the roof.
If
We,
you really need a roof.
so I apologize because I thought that we had to get select board approval for things $5,000 and higher, but it's actually $3,000 and higher,
Okay,
which is why we need somebody to go to Monday's meeting.
okay.
And we do have somebody who
There it is.
can work on it, David Turnbaugh. I'm waiting, I'm working with Lisa to get all of his paperwork sent in, like certificate of insurance and workers' comp stuff and all of that. She did tell me that Carl Rocco wanted to see a couple more. I don't know if he wanted quotes or just, I mean, I already gave Lisa a list of the, I don't know, half dozen companies that we already contacted that weren't able to help us, but,
Why don't we have that with us when we go on Monday, just in case?
yeah, I can.
Mike, are you going to, am I going? I'm just going.
It's always been my understanding that they would rather hear from a trustee instead of me. I'm happy to go with you.
I just.
But I
just
don't
need
know
a
if
little-
I'm needed.
I just need a little bit of, so that.
Yeah, I can give you the list.
Because I think, and I would be happy to talk to the select board about how difficult it's been to find anybody to respond. When they do respond, we can't find them, and we find out that they are no longer available in the work
Yeah,
doing roofs. So I think it's just a process they have to go through. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, didn't interrupt. We've waited a year. mean,
I think it's
thought-
been longer than that now, like from that original
So my
quote.
question is, if the select board says, okay, is this guy David able to do this before this winter, before the weather
It
turns?
seems like it.
Which is another reason why I hope Carl doesn't delay it.
I don't
because
think,
I'd
I
really
think
like
with
to-
a reasonable
they have to.
discussion, he will be.
I think
fine.
we just have to ask for
Yeah,
additional
because
quotes. Yeah.
this is the person who can do it, who's
Yeah.
able to
Right.
do it,
Mhm.
and who has responded.
And Lisa found 2 other companies and emailed them. I don't know if she heard anything back. So we'll see what happens, but
On Monday.
I just
By
hope the guy
Monday.
can actually do it before the winter.
Right.
it seems like
Okay, well,
he,
this is Friday, so I will,
No, Thursday.
tomorrow's
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
I will follow up with Lisa then, so I have for
Yeah.
Monday, I have some understanding of where we are, because I didn't know there were additional companies that had some opportunities.
Well, thank you for doing that.
That's awesome.
yes, thank you.
Going to the-
And I will say that Melissa offered to go with, if you would like
Oh, sure.
somebody to go with. So, but,
It's just me
Yeah.
having enough information and to be able to talk
Yeah.
intelligently about it, which
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
easy for me, so.
I don't think they'll go into detail about asking much. Yes,
So I have a question that comes under the building
you.
report.
Yeah, thank
I don't
you.
know if we have time to discuss it this time, but given that we don't have the grant, this sort of comes back to the whole CIC thing, but we really need to start thinking about what our priorities are on whether we can spend anything on any improvements at the library, and if so, what those are gonna be, right? I mean, we were talking about the ramp, and we were talking about painting, and we were talking about, you know, some other sort of smaller projects, but
Sure.
we need to focus on what those will be now that.
Right, and we did, when we submitted the project request to the
Right.
CIC, we did rank them
right.
based
Right.
by year, because we didn't want to ask for, so the first one. I think now it's been a month and a half,
the first
the
one was
ba-
the
was
basement.
the basement, the second one was the ramp
I think so, and the doors.
and the doors, and after that, I'm a little fuzzy, but each year we ask for
But the
something.
basement was just to sort of seal it,
Well, it's a
right?
pretty big job, actually.
No, I know, but that's what we're
Right.
planning to do is.
To seal it,
Just-
yeah.
We're gonna ask them to bring people to work on the envelope of the building,
Correct.
which is really critical from a, kind of health and safety, and then the ramp. And the doors, if we think the doors are.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to kind of make sure that that was still our plan to go
Mhm.
ahead.
Well, that's what we're gonna ask for, and that will, ultimately it's up to the select board as to when they,
Right.
if and when they might have the funds to do it.
Well, and our plan was to use the money that we have set aside.
CP,
Right,
right.
Right.
That's something that we wanna discuss.
Right,
But-
that's on the
but not-
agenda.
Because that'll be part of the discussion about the CD.
So do people from the select board actually like come to the library and see the basement, or do they just make up their minds based on whatever?
Oh, I don't think they've made up their minds at all.
Well, not yet, but when that time comes, I mean, do they realize this situation is sort of critical?
I think Carl does.
Carl does, I don't know how
He's
to
been in
answer it
there a
for,
lot.
I don't know how to answer it for everybody.
Yeah, I
Because
think-
I assume
He's
they'll
been
make,
down there quite a
but I
bit.
do assume they will make a very good informed decision, and there are, there are so many projects now that are, how can I say this, part of the CIC. So many projects are already in process now, that ours really is one of the, and there are a couple of others, and there's a, maybe a truck or something that's needed for one of the other entities, but if you think about the other projects that are big in town, they've had discussion for quite a while. And not that they're approved, but the fire station, town garage, the water, all the thing happening with water and roads, those things have been sort of in process for a long time, so I guess I'm looking at it as that those are really, they have a life of their own a little bit, they're still gonna go through a process and they need to, but ours are really quite small in consideration, but still, it's the funds that we have in our contingency and in the CD, in the capital fund, which is, and in the contingency, I think we, obviously need to be ready to put that forward to do the work. we need to do.
So remind me, because I think we talked about this at the last meeting,
Tell me
but I
if I
want
missed
to be
it.
sure I know that. If we have the fund, the select board can bless the project, but they can't nix it per se, because it's our funds, isn't that correct? I mean, isn't the CIC really more of a planning than an actual budgeting?
Oh, yeah, the CIC
So-
is just we're just a
A planning body.
planning. And we recommend to the select board, I think one of the things as a citizen taxpayer is that there are an awful lot of different, we have our little contingency fund and somebody else has theirs and somebody else has theirs and somebody else theirs. We all participate one point in time in our lives in some sort of a retirement fund, right? Where you all know that piece is mine, that's my $50,000. But the retirement company has to view it as I have, $500,000 and I need to use it year over year in the best way possible as I continue to earn interest. And I don't know, that's not, but at least in my mind, that's how I see eventually it all working. Like those funds are ours, they're earmarked for us, but in a certain year, the dollars that are in total for the town may go somewhere else.
Right.
But we still own that, we still own it, but our name is still associated with that. You know, 60,000, we,
So,
right.
so if we decided that we wanted to go ahead with doing some of the basement renovations, does that go to the select board? Even though we have the money for it? That
Yes,
will.
because it's
And
a big
just to
project.
finish
Anything over
answering your
$3,000?
The
Right.
select board heard about the things that we wanted to do, heard about the grant when we originally were going to apply for the grant. And I went through all the things that we were gonna have in the grant. And Carl has been in our basement. helping
Plenty of
with the
times.
Flooding issue.
Yeah, wetbacks, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hands-on kind of.
So, Roberta, we've heard the librarian's report and the building report, and so would you give us the financial? Please.
So, the balance sheet, we've got the balance sheet, the library expenses, the building fund, just bear with me, and then the library capital. And one of the things I did today was the similar question that you're asking about money. And I just wanted to confirm my understanding, we have the $52,000 sitting on the balance sheet, which is your prior year balances of unspent funds. Through the town appropriations, and really, that's just sitting in a checking account. So, and I was saying, well, why? Asking the same, why do we have to go through this big review when we know we've got 53,000 here? And then you also have the other 20,000 that's sitting on the library capital, which is also, I think, sitting in a checking account. Because I don't think that one's in the CD. I mean, I was just trying to figure out why is this going through? And it's okay, it's just like new.
So,
Like, why do we have to go through such a big review when you actually have the money? That's sort of.
well, I think it's bigger than just us. I
Yeah.
think that's the question. It's about developing a longer term capital plan for our town. So that as we all have expenditures and as we continue to grow, that there's a plan that the voters can see, oh, the fire department's gonna do this, the town, I don't know, the public works is gonna do that. No, look, the library. And today we really don't know. We're all operating sort of as independent little entities. And the select board has to, kind of almost on a one at a time basis, try to go, okay. And I think it's really, and I think it's really confusing. This is an opportunity for us to have a town plan. Doesn't mean you can't use the $52,000 toward projects. We just now have the same process we'd have to go through anyway to get approval from the select board. It's just now tied to we'll be in time, it's gonna be perfect this year, but tied to a much better capital planning, long-term process for our town. So that 10 years from now, or 3 years from now, or whenever there are new board people involved or new leaders in our community, we all still have a plan, we know what we're going forward with.
Which makes perfect sense.
I don't know, I
But,
just.
no, I mean, I think it does, as a town, to have that kind of long-term strategy and planning. But I'm still confused as Roberta, I mean, if we started an annual fund, for example, and we raised $30,000 because we want to, I don't know what we're gonna do with it, but we would still need to seek select board approval, even though it's money that's not part of the original budget. It's money that we received through a fundraising campaign. Would we still need to get select board approval?
I can only say we have a lot of, this is a work in progress. And for me, there's still a lot of, how does the select board want to manage certain things? I think I've asked that, we don't know I don't personally know the answer to that right now, but I would also say that what is difficult about public accounting like this is we already have those funds mixed in here. We already have donation funds
Right,
in
right.
different places, and how do we use it? I assume it's our money to use, but we still have to go through a process that's set up by the town to go through the planning and development, because there's a chance that, we could get to the bottom of this and go, we only think it's gonna cost $32,000. No, by the way, at the end of the bill, it's, much more than we thought we had. So we have an obligation, I think, to just make sure that the town understands what's happening, and should there be a need to go back to them and say, problem was bigger than we thought. No, so it needs to be tied. I'm sorry.
Because that's what I was thinking about in that if we didn't have the CIC, which I think is a great idea, but even
It's
prior
new,
to
and
that.
it's evolving.
Right,
I'm
but
not-
so
it's
prior
not-
to that, we still had to go to the select board for permission to spend our funds.
Yes,
And I guess that was sort of my question of, is that because they expect if there's a problem and we're under budget, we're gonna, or over budget, we're gonna come back and ask them for money? I mean, if we weren't, if we were gonna assume the responsibility ourselves, why would we need their permission? I guess that's the
It's
question.
oversight. I think it's because it's oversight and they seem very reasonable when you go.
Oh, no, I'm not.
No,
I
but
get it.
when you go in and explain to them what you want to use, it's like having a second, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like having a second set of eyes saying, well, have you thought about if you make those improvements that the electricity is going to be that much more or whatever? It's another way of looking at things. But if we've really thought it through and you explain to them why you want to do what you want to do, it's not hard to get things approved.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm talking about just long-term. I mean, you don't know what the select board's gonna want or not want in 20 years from now. And I'm just wondering what kind of autonomy the library has to spend its own funds as it sees fit to, and to then ergo assume the responsibility if a project runs over budget, that we're not gonna go and expect the town to bail us out, that we're gonna really have autonomy over our improvements.
I don't think that's how we're set up yet.
Maybe you should answer that.
So the question you're asking is overarching. It's more
Yeah.
about governance. and
Yeah, it
how
really is.
Structure works and the select board rules all. So you can't go to the select board by statute and say, if we run over, we'll take care of it. It's legally their responsibility. That's just the way it is. It's written in statute.
Because but we're not a municipal library.
Yes, you are.
We are a municipal library. That's.
There are
why
some that
they
are not,
Okay.
but this library
So
is.
it's because we're a municipal
Yep.
library that they have.
So if you run a deficit, it's the select board's issue.
Gotcha.
If,
Well, so if we wanted to do something that would like tear down the library and, you know, put up a trailer or
well, and
something.
you guys don't have that, you
Right,
know,
I
this
mean,
is why the
we don't have to.
building
Right.
budget is in the general fund and not in your library. The
Right.
town, the select board, quote unquote, owns the building.
Right.
And you're allowed to operate a library within the building. So you really control operating expenses and the select board controls
Gotcha.
building
Well,
expenses.
then they should pay for the roof.
That's the idea. Well, yeah, you could ask them to do that.
so well, that was really, I
Well, why
hate to
take
take this
the
off.
money away?
Well,
No.
so it has to go through, you know, Lisa and I have been talking a lot about this and we think our auditor and just for accounting purposes, those funds need to go through the general fund and the building account. So this is gonna be the select board's question is, well, you don't have those funds in those accounts, they weren't budgeted. And I think Lisa's looking into this with the auditor. So do we do a transfer from the library operating account to the building fund? Or are you really asking the select board if you can go $5,000, run a $5,000 deficit on that line item?
Well, but to the
Um,
point is that we did have the funds to do that in last year's budget. We just couldn't find anybody to do it. So we lost those.
I think the
funds.
price was more than we expected. I don't think we ever had a huge chunk of money. This is almost a $5,000.
Yeah, I think we thought it was 3 or something.
Yeah.
When we first
So-
started.
So I think last year the line item was 3, but part of it was spent.
Right, and it should be because it's a building that was, really last touched in 1979, with the exception of painting. So there's maintenance frankly that I would say obviously has been deferred. And this becomes one of those maintenance things, wherever the money comes from, we need to do it,
Mhm.
in my opinion. And I guess from all of you, I just like some guidance on. If you take, I wanted to ask you all, if you look at the current budget that we have for this year, do we have, there's probably not much, there might be a few hundred left after the plumbers. Repair, which again is an emergency, it's been leaking. It requires that we really think about how we budget, how we budget going forward in some of these things based upon what we need to fix, but do we have,
We have $800 and some of that's gonna go to the plumber. probably
Right.
300 or
So,
400, so.
do you think as a library, my question is, as a library, can we cover those costs out of our other operating budget? We have a 71,000 total, including them. I mean, is there, $100 out of each? I mean, is
Are
there?
we allowed to make that transfer?
I think this is a capital expense. I mean, I know it's less than $10,000, but it's for the roof, which is a capital
Right.
Mhm.
fixture on a building.
Right.
And so, and this is
Well, I hope
some
so.
of the stuff Lisa's gotta work through, and I know she reached out to our auditor, who's
Gotcha.
been hard to get hold of right now, but.
Yeah. My personal opinion would be to, if you ask us to take out of the operating fund, I would argue against it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but I just would say that's really not appropriate. This is
I
It's
would say that.
a building and maintenance upkeep.
Yeah.
So we have the library. Are you saying take it from the library capital? Where we have the $20,000, we have the CD with, and then we have the other 20,000, which is actually, I think, in the operating account.
Yeah, I think wherever the
I mean, that-
contingents, I hate to call it different, but not.
The library capital.
Let me see,
We also just have general surplus,
right,
which
Yeah,
you have to expense it to some type of a line item in your operating budget, and that looks like a deficit, but it ends up just taking from your surplus at the end of the year when you're true upping.
I mean, right now, we're in the balance sheet, we have 50. Yeah, read it.
52,000.
$53,000. Right?
So you're right, you definitely have money. You're not going to the select board and asking to
No.
run a deficit. It's
You
just a
just
matter
asking
of.
to
Where do
pay
we
the
take
bill
it from?
when you
And
want.
Lisa will be at that meeting on Monday,
Okay,
so.
so what is
We're all on the
the,
same page then.
what is this, what would be the recommendation from us to pull it from the capital? The library capital?
I take it from the general fund, from this 57
From the 57,000, okay.
or the 53, whatever it ends up,
Whatever it
it's
is.
kind of a different total, but
Yeah.
it would be there.
So
Can-
probably coming out of special projects and transferring to, we're back to where you started. You're
fine.
so smart,
Fine.
Caroline.
So Roberta,
Or they could take it out of the, is there a capital fund from the, there has to be a contingency at the select board level as well.
Yes.
That would be my first preference,
That would be.
but
yeah.
I don't make the decision, I'm just there to, unless they ask me, and not that they will, so.
All right.
what would be your first preference? I'm sorry, didn't you?
To, because it is a municipal building, it is a much needed repair.
Yep.
That was, under budgeted because we spent the past 3 years trying to find someone to do it, that I would ask that it come out of the select boards. I don't know what it's called, contingency
Or
fund,
whatever
I'm
they
not sure what it's
We're
called.
moving toward calling it a contingency fund. Right now, it's just been called surplus.
Okay,
Yeah.
surplus, fund, okay, that's it. But either way, we need to do this, so I don't,
Okay.
that's just my opinion. If it's not this person, somebody else.
But that'll be
Yep.
something that they will help clarify probably in one of the Monday night's meeting.
I would assume so.
I'm sure they'll tell us where we can take it from.
Or they'll ask for questions or more quotes or
Something.
and they
They
don't
may.
hesitate to do that.
Mhm.
Public Works will come to them and they'll say, bring us a couple more quotes. So,
But we'd be delighted to if we
That's
can
it.
get some more.
I
can't
quotes.
find
We've been
any.
getting quotes for a year.
I would just say we've been working for over a year and trying to, get a quote. This is the first one that's actually responded to us. Some have said, oh, sure, we'll get back to them and chase them.
It probably wouldn't hurt to have a list of all of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll give that to Angie before she goes.
Just to get a quote from somebody out of state.
Well, that might be clarified.
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Anyway,
And
let's
I think
just
it would be
go.
best
It's
to try
Monday,
not
so
Yeah.
ask them.
whatever way, it's
It's been a lot of
$5,000. We
work
just need to. do it.
Right, and
Sorry.
it's just,
We just need to get it done.
Where-
we added, the maturing CD to the financial report, but I don't want to move to that yet, if there is still more to discuss about the financial report.
So there's not really a lot, I mean, I was just looking down, I met with Lisa this morning just so I can better understand what I'm looking at, I said, well, what is that negative 5,329? And she explained to me that's because the appropriation from the town is done quarterly, so you run a negative until you get the
Yeah.
next quarter, and that's something I didn't really pick up on, and it just sort of jumped out at me. So as far as, there's not really anything new in here, that I'm aware of. I went through everything. And then the building account is negative, total funds is negative 2,941. So, well, that's what we spent this month. And then on the capital balance, it's the same, 81,046, so.
You do have warrants to sign today, right?
So we're on track, right? Because this is period 4. And we're
Bless you.
24% of the budget. So that's good.
Yeah.
Right, we're doing
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm gonna do, I was talking, for my own personal thing, one of the things I want to do is I actually like to look, like, always dealing with the year-to-date number against an annual budget doesn't work for me. And I like to see what happens month to month to month, and then I build sort of a projection. I haven't had a chance to do that, but now I think I've got a better sense. I met with Carolyn today as well to understand the warrants and, you know, she went through, you know, like what the warrants were in here. So well, it doesn't tell me what account number it's in. So it's really hard for me to figure out, like, I was trying to guess where they were because it's a year-to-date number, you know, without having last month and this month and subtracting. So I'm gonna build my own little spreadsheet that gives me a little bit more information. So, yeah, I think we're pretty good as far as the budget
No,
goes.
great, that was a great job.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, do you wanna, here is the budget. Do you wanna,
That,
that
we're-
again?
we're still on the,
Oh,
on
sorry.
the monthly, no, because I know it's, we're talking about the month, this month's budget, right?
Yeah, and
So,
and you're right, you know, that just simply looking at period 4 and what percent we spent doesn't give. I mean, it's an indication, but we don't know what months most things are spent in until, yeah.
And I just wanna be able to look and say, okay, no, this is normal. And I don't think I have by month of the last, I've got a comparison of the 5 last fiscal years that you had, but it doesn't tell me what's going on in each of the months. So
we
You know
didn't
what?
know much.
what's that?
You'll know a lot.
Yeah.
Going forward.
You already know.
You'll know a lot, yeah.
So anyway, that's just, you know, I'm just trying to adapt to a different
Mhm.
system and.
We're grateful that you're.
We are.
are.
I do just want to, there isn't very much, and you're absolutely right. There is one category here in housekeeping that says will be over $240 due to the increase in
Right.
hourly rate. That's regardless of what we spend the rest, I mean, that's in here. The other thing is, you know, we're gonna be off a little bit for the grant, and I'm not sure about the donations, so at some point in the future, I'd like to put that on the
Just like
agenda.
the income and expenses don't
Yes.
match up.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. And unless this is wrong, housekeeping will be over for the whole fiscal year.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, and we built that into the budget for next year.
Yeah,
But for this year, we have to.
and the grants that are off, between the revenue and the expense, unfortunately, that's gonna be probably a forever problem because we don't ever
Right, it's
get
how
them
grants work.
awarded
Right. Yeah.
when we,
Right.
in the same year that we spend
Right.
them.
It's, I understand, it's just, but it was my understanding that we have to this year account for every line item that we're
Right.
over, and the intent is we have to make up the dollars, it's not possible, or not suggested that we just run a deficit or you know, we have the contingency sitting there, so I guess it's.
So I guess my question, just to make sure that I understand, you know, because I've always worked with, if I'm given $100,000 and I've spent $80,000, but a couple of the line items are maybe over budget, under
Right.
budget, when
As long as the
at the
bottom
end of the
line.
day,
is-
I'm still got
Yes.
$20,000 that
Yes.
I've got left. So
Yes.
from my perspective, I'm golden.
Right,
But I don't know if that's how the
No, that-
board will.
I agree, I just want us to make sure that
Yeah.
I just gonna keep reminding us that we have to just make sure of that, 'cause this is new.
Okay.
I mean, 240 isn't very much,
Addition.
Yeah. thank God you can.
Just, so
Okay.
anyway, that's, I don't really have a lot more to say on that. And I guess if you have warrants that.
Yep, the warrants are there that
Okay.
can go around.
And then the maturing CD.
So what is the question? Are we re?
Oh, yeah, you can just pass around
No,
that
let's just hold
top
it on
key for
the
people
agenda.
to.
So, yeah,
Wait till
Roberta
approve
asked
them,
me to
right?
put that on the agenda because the CD's maturing. I think that's also now ties into the conversation of, are we going to, since we did not get the grant, are we going ahead to do any of the repairs with the money that we now have? Which we'll have to take to the select board too.
Right, and if we start with the ceiling of the basement, well, I guess even before that,
25.
Yeah.
if we are gonna move ahead on any of these projects, i.e. the basement ceiling. Are we gonna, those kinds of projects, can they be done in the winter? In other words, does it make sense for us to renew the CD for another 3 months or so, because we're not gonna be spending it in the next 3 months anyway, because winter's coming? Or is that a project, the ceiling of the basement, something we can do during the winter, and the ramps and the doors is another summer project? Do you see what I'm asking? Whether
The timing.
Yeah,
whether we should just keep it going for a while or take the money and just spend it now? Does anyone know the answer to that?
Well, good,
I was just gonna say, with these smaller projects that we put to the
CIC.
CIC, those are gonna be kind of once a year projects. And so
Right.
we wouldn't even, I don't even think we would start thinking about doing the basement until
Next
25,
spring.
26, right? So
Right.
we have
So there's
time.
nothing wrong with us keeping it in a CD if we're getting a decent return on it
And just
Right,
and
waiting.
just holding on to it until
Yeah.
we're really ready to spend it, okay?
And I have a similar situation just personally, and my, the advisor said, Aunt. If you can get a long-term rated, I don't know what they are now, take it.
Yeah,
So
I don't know what they
if-
are. I mean, I haven't looked myself.
if
So
they're
maybe even
for-
6 months is something we should be considering instead of the 3, although 6-month rates tend to be lower.
I think you have to look at what's out there.
Nine,
that's
I think,
available.
yeah.
Nine.
Lisa would have that information, right?
I
You
don't
have
think,
to ask
well,
her.
it's a little soon because we sort of have to wait till we're
Right.
closer to the
That's true.
point
They
the
won't-
renewal date
they won't
is,
talk to
because
you.
the interest rates
Right.
fluctuate so
Right.
much. I mean, they were almost like, some places were like 5%, but I don't think you're going to get that
No,
now.
they're-
You're gonna get,
Yeah, I
you're
think they're
lucky.
for, like, you're right, though, I think that there's
There
a
is,
7 or 9 is more than the
and the
12.
6 or the
No, the
12.
12,
Right,
but that's just right now in this point in time, so.
so when does it mature? You have 10 days after the date of maturity to make a decision, right? Do we know the
I think
actual
it's
date?
October. I don't know if it's October. I have to look.
I'm so sorry, I don't know that.
No, I don't know the exact date either.
We have a little bit of time.
And related to that, we've got another grant coming up, right?
Maybe,
The HUD.
maybe, yeah.
So if we wanted to apply for that.
They're saying January,
January
Would be-
application date.
yeah,
That they would.
Kick it off.
open it, yeah,
Open
not that it would be
Couldn't
due.
Even begin.
Do the presentation.
Yeah.
January.
do the
Yeah.
seminar.
And when would they presumably give us a decision? We know-
Don't have that.
But
I
so-
can find out, but I don't know.
So in terms of the CD, we have how much money in this?
So it's a 3-month rollover and the last maturity date was July 22nd. So, you know,
October 22nd. So my point is that if we're not gonna have another
much
board
is in there?
meeting before our 10 days
Oh.
from maturity is up,
60.
can we vote to consider a 6 or 9 months, depending on what our interest rates are and depending on
You can authorize the treasurer
to pick one?
to
Pick the
to
better
work
of the
with. the
6 or
treasurer.
9 months.
So I
Yeah.
would be,
You
I
could
would be
motion
inclined to do a longer,
Yeah,
uh,
you could, yeah, you just have the discussion. We want you to pick whatever the best rate is, or our preference is timing, or, and then authorize her to make that decision with Lisa.
I mean, if it's 9 months, that means it would be June of next year
Mhm.
before we have that money. And it sounds to me, from what you're talking about, we wouldn't be spending it until that time,
Till July.
till July, till the next budget, yeah.
So maybe.
I'll make
yeah,
that, I'll
so
make
we
a
can-
motion.
I was
that
just
we-
gonna say, I made a motion on the floor.
We authorize our treasurer to make the best possible decision considering the options available in working with the town treasurer to determine our CD rate and timing for the following period. Period.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, and I'll send an email. I'll try
Thank
to
you.
send it as soon as, like, you know, if you have enough time beforehand so that we can see it. Okay, thank you.
Although you can't make decisions by email, open meeting law. That's why they're authorized you.
You make the decision.
Yeah.
You can just.
But I can
You could
send
tell us.
notification.
Yes,
tell us
you
what-
can distribute
She
information,
can
you just can't
with
discuss it.
One other person, that's not a
Yes.
meeting, right? So if
Yeah.
you wanted to discuss it with Andy,
Yeah.
or you can discuss it with 2 other people, is that?
You can discuss it with as many as you want, you just can't create a daisy chain.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's a little hard to kind of prevent that sometimes.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
every board kind of has their own comfort level, knowing their personalities.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very helpful. There we are.
Putting my foot in my mouth a lot. here.
I'll get-
Right.
So in new business, first item is the IT vendor choice.
Yes.
Ah, yes, so, I, uh, I don't know if this is unfortunate or not, but I feel a little bad
Thanks
that you,
for warning.
that you're the first group I've had to bring this to. And I honestly, when I came and I brought you the proposal, I got very little feedback. And I know from my conversation with Caroline that her number one most important thing with IT was the help desk,
desk.
being able to get support.
Yes.
So what I can say is based on my review of the proposals we've gotten, I think the library will be well covered there. So I wanted to start with maybe just a really broad question of how much, if at all, you wanted to dive into these proposals to provide feedback on a preference that I could take back to the select board? Or not, yeah, because we could jump into, kind of my ranking criteria and how I reviewed these. We could also discuss some of the conversations I had with each of the vendors and some of the pros and cons I might see based on your desire for superior customer service. Or we could just, because they all came in kind of in the same cost range. I mean, there is a variance. You're looking at 2,500 up to 3,000 a month, but I was pleased that they were all kind of lumped together like that, knowing that we're going from $1,200 and I anticipated a jump like this. I think we're just getting to market rates. It's just taken us a while.
Will you remind me when this contract will start with whoever's chosen?
Yeah. I don't have it, yeah.
Oh,
I do have it in
that's
front
okay,
of me.
I'm thinking of the budget and the.
I had a proposed timeline on the
Oh,
cover,
that's okay.
November 4th.
Okay, so soon, this fiscal year.
Are there any hardware changes, expenses that we need to incur depending on who we would choose?
And do you feel all the
No.
customers, they all have
And they all
reasonable,
have good customer
they've all good customer service?
Yes.
So these
I'm good.
three flipped in when you had your original one. Did you talk to a different person?
No, so what happened is there was, they had a different style in their review process, and somebody was assigned to me to work with gathering the information needed to create the proposal. And this person was very attentive. He was in person and by Zoom, and most of his information was submitted to me verbally. So I got the proposal from him and it was all financial based. And then when I went to do the comparison, I realized I didn't have a lot of the requirements here that were in the proposal. And I really wanted this to be as much of an apples to apples comparison as possible. So I reached out to him and I said, look, you've verbally told me these things, but I don't have anything to show to the board. So I'm just putting down zeros or ones unless you can provide it. And he did, he provided it. I felt it's too bad it couldn't have been in time for this to just be the first one that goes out, but I wasn't sure I was gonna get it. So he submitted that information and he went from a 12 to a 38 and it really, so it was, and the questions here, letter of transmittal, did you submit your address? Did you submit contact information? Vendor information, how many employees do you have? Like submitting this versus not submitting this isn't gonna change whether or not they're gonna provide a great service
Right.
for us.
What is non-performance? What is that?
So they had to tell us whether or not they've ever been cited with non-performance.
Oh.
Like, did you ever, did anybody ever take action against you for not providing service? They got a 5 because they answered the question. The answer was no, they just didn't answer the question.
That's
So,
interesting. that they-
I didn't
Yeah.
know, so I gave him a 0.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I
Yeah.
really
All the
wasn't
direction.
kidding when I said that our needs are very different
Mhm.
and very minimal compared to
Yeah.
the needs of these other boards. I mean, certainly IT support, help desk is critical for everybody, but that's really our biggie and our only biggie. I mean, if I was members of the universe, I would go with BC3 just because I somehow like them best. But I certainly, as a library board, would never say, gee, I'm sorry, if all the rest of you want tech group, we're gonna ask for you to reconsider. I mean, I don't feel like it's really,
yeah, but it is a large part of your budget.
it's a large
You need,
part of our
so you should
budget.
have a voice because. the
No, I
only-
get
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I get that and I appreciate that, but I'm saying that I'm not sure even penny pinching, even for the board, for us as a library board to say, that's not the cheapest vendor. So we should go with the cheapest vendor is really serving the town
Right,
by saying that. So
and VC3 would be the best option for the water board,
I think VC, well,
They just
for
would.
any of them,
Okay.
I just.
and
feel
we all drink the water. so-
I just feel like for us, it can't be only about the money because this is a town issue, not just the library.
Yeah.
And if I could follow up, one of my questions was good, so it'll be, the select board will determine how this will be paid for in this fiscal year.
Mhm.
Mm,
Well,
It's
I
a
don't,
big-
yeah,
It's a big jump.
and this is another struggle where, you know, the select board isn't instigating this. Our IT company was bought out and then we got a new quote and it was such an exorbitant increase. I thought we need to do a comparison here.
Yes.
So this isn't like the select board saying, okay, everybody, we have to increase our service needs. It's,
No,
right.
right.
So it's just, it's unfortunate. And I think the costs still need to be distributed and allocated where they're expensed from because well, I personally struggled with this when I was treasurer. Should we just have a central bucket? Because we as a town want to have a centralized IT vendor that provides all of our services. And I ended up deciding no, because boards and departments, if they're not aware of how their
Mm.
operations will affect cost, you know, because these costs are really determined per device, per email user. And if you don't know that, and if it's not running through your budget and you're having to make those budgetary decisions every year, it's really easy to be like, well, let's just buy emails for all the board members, or, you know, it really should funnel through the departments.
I'm fine with the allocation to every entity. My question was.
Because you're gonna run a deficit in those line
We're gonna run a
items.
pretty significant
Yeah.
deficit, and we need the
And-
budget for it now next
Yeah.
year, but we can't, I mean, so I have a, you know, we're doing this, so. I know how we do it elsewhere.
Yeah.
I just don't know how the select board will do this, but we're not, I will make every effort to get as close as we can, but that's a pretty big chunk. and We have to
Yes.
cut, so we'd cut programs and services.
Yeah, so I think the select board, this would be a discussion, perhaps somebody from this board to have with the select board. I think the first recommendation, well, I would imagine what the select board would first say is, can you use your surplus? That's probably what the
Mhm.
select board's gonna have to do, and we're gonna be in the same,
Yeah.
Well, maybe we-
same with the water board. And if you guys really have that earmarked for something, then you're asking for them to help with the select board surplus contingency.
Given that it's a municipal, again, it sort of comes back to like the roof. I mean, this is a municipal project, not a library project. So we would be.
See, and this is where I would
forced or
argue.
Not forced.
I would argue this is more operations, because
Or
you guys could say, okay, this is what we're doing at the town office. After seeing this quote, I'm getting rid of 3 computers.
Mm,
So this is the conversation you guys could have as well. And this is why I think it's important the costs run through the departments, because it really is operation specific what the cost is.
So would it be, if thinking, looking ahead at the allocation, so would you be allocating it to each area based on their number of computers? And I have no idea how many we have across the town.
Yeah, and if you, so this is how we've divided out in the past. Page 2 of the proposal shows that, oh, it's not actually on here. Let me pull that up.
oh,
The Tanner.
Yeah, no, that's not your fault. That's
Okay.
that's me. I tried to make it easier to look at and digest, and I knocked out some of the information that builds it like that
Make
you're
it
looking
easier.
at. Yeah, it does. So let me pull up. I don't have that ready. I didn't. I realized today when I was going through all
Oh,
this
this is
that I.
crazy, this is a lot, it's a lot, it's just a lot, it's okay.
It is.
Can I ask you something while you're still on that page for a sec?
Sure, yeah.
So VC3 got a second chance to answer questions. And the difference in the scoring of the other two are the zeros in the columns. And they didn't get a second chance to explain what those things were. Were there other reasons that you thought VC3 would be more appropriate for the library?
No, my comment was for the water. I think earlier I made a comment that VC3 would be best for the water.
For the
Yeah.
water, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Um,
But to your point, were you asking why didn't she go back and ask Tech Group and Epico?
I'm just saying that I
come up
think that,
with some
that the ones
answers?
that have 2 zeros in their column may be artificially low because they didn't get a second chance to answer the questions that they didn't answer.
And that's a very valid point, and I
Yeah.
thought a lot about that and even deciding to redistribute this. This is why my thought process was, all these questions had been answered, but they've been answered verbally to me. And all I did was, I didn't send them a list saying, I don't have this, this, and this. All I said was, I don't have your proposal requirements in writing to distribute to the boards. And so they answered the proposal requirements in my mind, the same way Tech Group and Epic had the chance to.
Oh, so you went back to all three of them? and
No.
said-
They filled out they filled out the template. They answered all the
Yeah.
questions. The other ones answered all the questions, though they put 0, whereas.
Yeah, I could go back and ask them. I
No,
could
I
say,
think
we
they
want a
asked-
physical response to this question.
No, I
Where's-
think.
because
you
they
did
might
this- You
be-
did this in a way that's about as arduous as can be. I just in terms of, looking at the raw scores, that I was thinking that possibly that will not quite mean the same as what your impression was and why you were recommending DC3. That's
And
why I was asking that question.
There's an element that this is another reason why I wanted to show this to the boards and discuss it, is because, especially like the water board, I would expect them to be like, we don't agree with your methodology. Let's dig into this a little bit. Because I'm looking at this and making a judgment call. These boards could have thought, by not answering, we're telling you that there's been 0 non-performance. So there's a level of interpretation on my part, reading through these and trying to make sense, because they all present it differently too. It's,
What's what is the summary? I just don't know what's defined in each one of these.
so this is all based off of the proposal.
Oh, okay.
So if we go back to the proposal, there's actually section 4 lists all of these and gives a little blurb. So what I did was read the blurb and then look for that discussion in each of the proposals, and then I made a judgment call.
And those guys,
Yeah.
other guys didn't make a
Right.
blurb.
It was definitely a judgment call. Like, there's nothing about this that's, I tried to make it numbers and cents, but, yeah. And so this, I don't know if you're curious, it didn't seem like you guys wanted to dig into this.
No.
But that's the technical, one of the vendors I talked to was like, well, everybody should get a 5. That's what we all do. But,
Give
so
them a
I,
free for
well,
the-
like, I think with Tech Group, part of it was I just didn't understand, which is maybe where, a follow-up might be in place. If that was a group we were really interested in because they were the lowest price, that's where a board might say, hey, would you follow up with them? And maybe we, maybe that is, and like here, future projects, I just didn't answer. There was a whole section on the proposal where I'd lined out the 5 projects we hope to do in the future and how could you address it? And VC3 spent a whole half hour talking to me about future projects.
So what I would worry about if I was the person doing this and I was getting these kind of comments with people
Yeah.
where they were not paying attention to my question.
Yeah.
Mm.
That would, yes.
I mean, to me,
So I think Tech Group and APOC is be of concern.
if they don't have the time or effort
Yeah,
to answer the question and give you something.
they're just trying to sell you.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why it's one out of a bunch, because they're great in other areas,
but I mean-
but. And all of, so this is literally taken from the proposal. These were all sections, so this is everything in section 3
Right.
that was listed. And this is everything in section 4 that was listed. And then this was everything. There's a section at the end that just stated, this is how we're going to review your qualifications as a vendor. Section 5. That was probably the most judgment call-y.
I don't know what the select board would say, but and it's obviously that we're just providing some feedback, but I again you learn a lot by talking to the people and
Yeah.
relationships that you develop. And again, if I had a vendor that was just not listening, they could, I worry if they're not responding to this when we call them for a major project.
Right.
How
That's
high on
for-
their list are they going to be on our list, how high are we gonna be on their list? That's
It
just-
feels to me, and I used to see this a lot as of someone who reviewed grant applications. It
Okay.
seems to me like they gave us their boilerplate proposal responses. As opposed to reading the very specific proposal requirements or questions that we requested, they had a boilerplate that they throw out to any municipality, for example, that's asking them. And I used to see that when I was reviewing grants, they wouldn't follow the questions in the grant application, they would throw me their boilerplate grant proposal. And I always thought, boy, if you don't really take the time to read what I'm looking for, I don't know if I've got the time to read what you're giving me. I mean, it's kind of a snide response, but
Time
know,
just as important.
it's important that they're paying attention to you.
So what,
Well, I feel a little insulted that there were vendors who didn't take the time to answer some of our requests.
So which vendor?
I liked VC3 because they answered everything. They came back, even if they didn't, I mean, they gave us answers to
Yeah.
things.
Corinne, do we vote on this or what do we do?
no, I was just gonna, this,
Feedback.
ultimately it's up to the select board.
Okay,
So I originally went to them and said, you guys want a townwide solution. This is the situation we're in. Do you want this to be a select board driven process or, and they were like, no, this is all part of their budget. We'll go and have them review the proposal and then go and have them review the proposals you get for the proposal. So I'll be bringing back feedback, basically.
okay.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think, again, I think our biggest thing is the affordability.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure, in spite of the cost, additional cost to us, which is significant. I'm not sure that's reason enough to just go with the cheapest vendor. But that said, I would love to see some support from the select board in paying for it because it is important that we get the best that works for everybody.
And could we see the distribution? I think you were gonna call that up, how
The
determined.
cost,
Yeah, how you were gonna rank, share,
I have it.
spread the cost and all.
Here's, I have,
okay, I think I have to
Yeah,
stop
it's
the
like-
sharing and then.
yeah, it looks like this.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought that, but that, is that?
No,
just
there
the-
was,
I thought that was the whole town.
Yeah, there was a deeper.
about-
Library, this says library, $700, $596, $646.
We were talking about,
Reading that right? See where it says
Mhm.
each individual.
yep, so I think what,
Where are you looking?
I don't know. I'm-
What am
why
I
isn't it
missing?
coming up?
I think she's looking.
So that was the.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry, I'm done.
Did you find it?
I get, yeah, sorry.
Where are you?
My bad.
No, there's a lot of paper and it looks the same. That's. I used to make it does, it's all white.
All right, so we basically just have to annualize the $700 okay.
And then next year it's,
That's
it'll,
per year.
Yeah.
I guess our question is, the question
Okay.
for our budget would be,
So bad.
sorry, maybe this is a Lisa question. This is $700
For
Uh,
library.
for a 12-month period, starting in November. Right?
Doesn't seem
And, and my question would be, so in the middle of our next fiscal year, is there an increase, would there be an increase built into the budget? Because we'd have
We'd
to add it.
have to, we'd have to
You have
put
to
something,
estimate.
put an inflation factor at a minimum.
Right.
Like a 3%.
until unless we get some
Okay.
guidance. That's what I would do.
Starting this
That-
November.
So
This
the,
this November and then.
It'll go
we would
November,
build it into
November,
the budget.
right?
I can
I think so.
seasonalize it, so.
So, yeah, and then just add it for the next budget year, so we know what the inflation factor is.
the thing I wanted to show you was how I came up with the percentage breakdowns. So what
Okay.
you were looking at here is like an overall total.
Yes.
Like, how did I decide that the town is 600 and the library is 200? And it's by device. So when I'm sitting here saying your cost is based on your operation, it occurred to me, you might not realize why. So if you know, and this is not current. This is
Mhm.
really, this is, I wasn't sure how to do this. Again, it's a judgment call, like our current costs were based on this. So to compare to what we were paying currently, I decided to leave devices at what they were for a current cost. That's why you have the big small, the like warning, the disclaimer. This is gonna change. It's more just to try and give you an idea of your breakdown percentage
It's,
wise.
it's about the number of devices, appliances we have, devices we have.
And it goes a little deeper now that we're kind of playing with the big boys. We've got like true cybersecurity. There's also like an email component.
I'm gonna argue I know this is probably and it's not easy, no, this is easy, but it's a logical way to do it. I would argue the water department has much more valuable information for the entire community and will rely heavily on the use of this type of of a product and service than the library would.
Mhm.
Not that we don't have one more device than they
We
do.
have more computers.
We have
But
far
think of
fewer
it for a lot of us.
information and
Yeah.
they have a.
I mean, our mission is
Oh,
to
darn.
provide
You're right.
communication services in to some extent to the town through having better, and, you know, through having computers that people
Right,
can come and
right.
use. So, you know, I certainly wouldn't advocate that we're gonna cut back the number of computers.
no,
I
no.
s- In fact, I still would like to do more because I think even without the addition, hopefully we'll have more computer
Right.
access. And everybody is based, I mean, all three of these companies are based on the number of computers we have.
Devices
So-
and users.
Devices and users,
Yeah.
so. You know, we're gonna be stuck paying a lot more than water or public, just by virtue of the fact that our mission is to have more
More devices.
devices.
Then I misunderstood. I'm sorry. May I clarify
Yeah.
that?
But no, I get
I-
what you're saying though, because if we're gonna pick a vendor who's more expensive, but they have the formalized cybersecurity component, and we really want that as a town to protect our water department over everything else. And yet we're basing it on devices. So I've been
Mhm,
talking
you're
with the water operator and Lisa, well, maybe there's a way to weight their devices, cause there still needs to be some
Mhm.
quantifiable metric for a breakdown.
Cause my assumption
But-
is that was just the town chose to divide it by
Device.
device for the most part. It's,
Well, that's how
it's
the
logical and that's how it's
proposals
set
are
up. Yeah,
set up.
yeah. no, I
But it would
understand.
be interesting to weight it, because, I mean, someone could hack the water department and change the water pressure, and it would affect everybody, and it would affect
Or
the
get our private
structure.
information.
I don't think anyone's gonna really hack the library, and if they do, it's not gonna create a major uproar as a pressure change in our water.
Yeah.
for example.
It's just a question.
And these costs that are listed, like that says monthly application, so it would be $700 a month
Yes.
from VC three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
From 280, which is.
well, yeah.
Yeah, which is,
Significant,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
is why I, would love to see the town. Open.
700. We just need to do the math.
And
real
I
quickly.
would encourage you, if anybody wants to be at this select board meeting on Monday, it's gonna be their first review of this. I don't think it would. I don't know if it's appropriate for me being the person to coordinate this to champion for them to help pay for the library.
No,
Versus, yeah,
I
but
would,
I see where you're coming from.
Well, we have a $71,000 budget. I mean, it's not like we're
Right.
rolling in the dough, but.
It's an overall
But
larger.
whatever it
percentage
is,
increase
if it
for
comes
you
out of the
all.
the 50s, whatever that money is, well, that's.
well, I mean. I can't be there Monday, but if I could, I'd definitely argue it.
You'd be very good at it. so it's-
But you said too that that's Monday's the first time this is gonna be discussed.
Yes, and then the next Monday, I'll be meeting with the water board,
Mm.
and then if everybody's like, hey, we love VC3, then I'm hoping the next Monday, the select board will sign off on it. But I did ask everybody to submit proposals with a 90-day window, so that if we need to, we can continue the discussion.
So Helen, you might.
Well, I always am busy on Monday nights.
Oh.
Big number. But my point is not necessarily the vendor. My argument would be, okay, we will support, but. Maybe you need to weight the devices, or maybe you need to appreciate the fact that our mission is to have as many devices for the town as possible.
If you guys want to submit something in writing to go, my mission here tonight is to get your feedback and bring it back to the board. I was looking more for decisions on vendors rather than how to allocate the payment, but I think that would have more weight coming from you all, but something in writing could.
It's just such a significant increase for us that I think it's worthy. Of bringing that to their attention and saying, yeah, this is the best thing for the town, we're all in, but.
And knowing next
If
year, our
we're
next
spending
budget
this out of
submission.
our surplus every single year, we're not gonna have much of a surplus after.
So, well, what I mean is our budget next year will be a much larger submission. than it is
Much
this year.
larger submission,
And only because of
right,
this.
But nobody can argue with that being the mission of the
Mhm.
library, so
exactly.
that's how we take care of it.
Right.
Increase it in the budget.
So is someone interested in writing something up that Corinne could read?
I think it'd be interesting to wait and see how things go at Monday's
Should we
meeting
take-
before we.
Or even the, I really think water, it's gonna be,
And then drive it.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and their meeting is the second,
Okay,
Monday.
so stay tuned.
Yeah,
But we have to have our budget submitted by the end of this month, so we have to sort of decide what we want to put in our budget. Knowing that there's I've got a note in here, it's an unknown, but
Mhm.
do we err on the side of what we see on here for now and then?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we build it in as, as. a
Yeah.
fixed
And then
budget,
whatever
it's
the-
6 to
whatever the
700 a
cost-
month,
And that would
Inflation.
be another opportunity for the select board to see.
how it's impacting.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Corinne.
and that just sort of, that we can move right into discussing the budget then, because this is one of the items we'll be talking about.
Yeah, just for some reason. I didn't look at them.
oh, and Roberta has copies of the budget
Oh,
for
that's awesome.
everybody.
Yeah, because even though I still look at paper.
Thank you, Roberta. This was
Yeah,
amazing.
thank
You did a great job.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah, that's okay. You saying we got to see a budget?
yeah, good. Why not? Are there enough copies?
Yeah, I have a copy.
Do you?
Mhm.
These are extras.
So I've met with Carolyn and we, I sent out the draft after she and I had met, and I went, met with, Lisa again this morning because I still had some open items. I wanted to see, is there any change from her perspective? And she said, no. So we just, if you want, I'll just walk through the various things, like the library water. We won't know until the water department finalizes their budget, so we just basically, rolled the budget forward with, I think it has a 3% increase in there. And then, the library maintenance and repairs, well.
This is,
Yeah.
where I'd ask a question
Yeah.
of us all.
Yeah.
Because in the capital, I'm hoping that if the 25,000 comes out of the town, whatever allocation, but. Back to your question, what other things do we need to be fixing? That aren't gonna, go to the level of potentially $10,000, which is the capital. Threshold.
But we could nickel and dime ourselves to death.
Yes, we could. So just, we don't have to answer it maybe right now, but think about what else do we need to. They're relatively minor repairs, but the AC, I know it was the AC units this year.
Yeah.
They need to be cleaned annually. Carpet, I mean, just whatever because the prices are going up, as we all know.
Where was carpeting in the priorities? Was that low?
That might have been number 3, or maybe it was either 2 or 3,
I
I think.
have that.
It wasn't two,
I think it was.
I don't think it was
4.
2.
and then
Yeah,
painting was last,
painting was last.
right? Remember
Yeah.
first and one last, but everything
So-
between.
So from a budgeting perspective, do you want to have more comments as to what we potentially feel we're gonna be using the $2,000 for? Is that what you'd like to, would you like?
Only because I think
further
I want
comments? And
to,
that's fine, I just.
no, I just wondered if we know. I mean,
Well,
and asking what specifically, is there anything that's gonna be, not
Yeah.
a surprise, but we should be looking at it because maybe we haven't. but-
well, this $2,000 covers the carpets being cleaned.
Right.
I think we put the AC units being cleaned at a
Awesome.
much lower rate because
They've
they
been
just got a
done,
deep
yeah.
clean. The furnace being inspected,
Yeah,
um,
is it just?
and I
anything-
think there, yeah, just like the basic annual stuff, and I don't think there was anything else outside of that,
Any-
and we had just looked at previous years.
Any other?
statements
So
to-
so those are kind of regular maintenance, but any
Yeah.
other
It's not
repairs.
Yep.
And so that's the question about. Well, anyway, any repairs?
No,
I don't
that's
know
fine.
the
I'll
answer.
put that, I just wanted to make sure that we,
I just don't have-
had the basement repairs noted in there so that we
That was good.
think it
yeah.
was gonna come through here.
I don't know what repairs.
Yeah. And basically library general insurance, we just rolled, I took, just roll it forward. Library electricity, we added a 3% increase in there. Library fuel and propane, we rolled it, rolled the budget across. When you look at 24, I mean, again, that can change depending on the type of winter you have. If you have a really cold winter, that might not be enough. That's my only concern with heating.
Why would we build a 3% increase into that then?
Right. We definitely could.
I think we should.
I think we
Okay.
should.
Okay, and then town appropriation, Yeah, I don't know what we'll get. Library grant revenue, that's basically should be offset by the expenses, even though we budget as if they're gonna happen at the
Yeah.
same time. We know there's gonna be some variance there. Library donations,
This is a question I
Yes.
had, because we are, I don't know if we're accepting, I realize the reality is what it is, but we're accepting the fact that do we have to try and come up with another solution or a different way of raising funds, because
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember at the
I-
last meeting, I
it's in the-
asked that we talk about this.
Yeah, it's
in
scheduled.
January or something,
Yeah.
that we should
Fundraising?
figure out if we're gonna do an annual
Yeah.
appeal or whatever.
just a question, I know. we can't-
Because we have taken a hit
Yeah.
to some extent on a book sale. And, you know, we have to decide how that's gonna move forward. I mean,
because they have,
where, how,
at North Hero at the end, they're doing a book sale,
the Island Arts.
Oh, that's Island Arts, yeah.
but they're doing twice. They did one earlier.
Mhm.
They're doing-
Those are our books.
Yeah, a majority of them are just fine.
A lot of books.
Yeah.
It's just a question for us to consider. Is there any, now, I think the budget is whatever it is and fine, but what else can we do in the small side to, you know, should we take another look at where we have books located? Or I don't know, just want us to think about it for the future. Cause I'm not.
Would it help to have more bookcases downstairs? To have,
Well, that was one thing that Pat and I had talked about was, and we would have to talk to the community hall committee. You know, if we didn't get the addition, should we take bookcases from the basement to downstairs in this building so that it's set up so we can have more books down here?
Well, what if they don't want us to have more?
Exactly. And I don't know
Or they
how
want us to be moved
long-term,
out
yeah, I
in a
don't know
few
how
years.
long-term
Yeah.
the book sale is with the community
And
hall.
that's another reason why I'm going for this annual appeal concept or something similar, because I just feel like we need some more legs to these stools. You
Mhm,
know, they're just balancing on too few legs.
mhm.
And that, is that by donation? It's by donation
Yeah.
downstairs.
another possibility, I mean, you're accepting many fewer donations at the library right now, right?
Mhm.
If we accepted more donations and did another book sale, that book sale was incredibly, it was good. It did
I mean,
really well, right?
yeah, but
Kinda went
we
up
had,
here.
it was a lot of
There
work
was a lot of-
Or not.
for just under $1,000,
Is that all?
right? I think that's, and then we had, I mean, and
A
then we
lot
had
of
to get
books
rid
left.
of those books.
Would you
Yeah.
like me
But-
to ask Tim to bring it up to the committee, the building
Committee hall.
committee about whether we can have more bookcases?
Yeah, and I'm happy to email them too, to say, you know, what is the long-term plan for that part of the building? Can we bring in bookshelves and,
But and as a
Yeah.
trustee,
I
too,
think that would be
Yeah.
good to know what
Do we
we're,
get
what
much
we're dealing
traffic
with there.
Well, that's the
People
thing that
even
bothers me. It's people who come into the library looking for books.
That's
People
my
don't
question,
come
where
into
else
the
can we-
community.
well,
looking for
Courtney
books.
and I are actually working on breaking down like what donations we got last fiscal year and like, I mean, I know we have like the $100,000 that we got, but what's separate from that was actually book sale money so that we can see how much of a hit we took. So it might take a little bit of time to
That's
sift
good.
through them, but we're working on that, so,
If we could get someone to donate a trailer.
yeah.
No, seriously, something
Yeah.
we could use as like a book sale, like a mobile library kind of an idea, book sale. And have it on the property of the library, because I truly believe. You know, just in the few times I've been volunteering at the library, people come in, they look for books and then they
Mhm.
go, oh, you have stuff in the base, oh, well, let's go down and take a look. You know?
Yeah.
And I just regret that we didn't move books on.
And, yeah, so to be.
My mother thanks you for that, by the way.
I was your mom.
Yeah, my mother was she was in a assisted living and she would read a book a day. So, and people there, all of the helpers, they were going to the library, bringing her books, and I would go down to the basement and bring bags.
was awesome.
So I thank you for that.
Well, I just,
Anyway,
I
something
wish
to
there was
think about.
some way we could bring it back on site.
Yeah,
I
I agree.
really-
Even
Yeah.
on a smaller scale, if we could. And there's probably no space. Take out a shot,
If anybody has. a
CDs,
leftover
DVDs.
trailer, they Don't want to use.
but you have to light it and, I mean, there's
I know.
Get Brian to build us a shed.
Well, can we put up a shed?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, that's a
I mean, you
question.
put up a gazebo, why not? You have to go meet
We
zoning.
could, we could do a community project and build a library donation
Have a
shed.
barn raising.
Have a, I'm
idea.
serious. I mean,
I'm
if we
too.
really had the site to do it, if we were allowed to do that. Oh, I'd come
Go
down
ask.
and hammer some nails. I'd do that.
Paint. Yeah, I like to hit things.
You can put people's faces on it. Probably the first step is to see how much revenue we've actually lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
can dream.
And see whether it's really.
It is on the-
really need
on the
pumps.
Yeah.
More.
Okay, so. I
That's
guess-
good. Thank you.
We reduced the amount of the donations, so we brought it down to 3,000 and, you know, we thought it seemed to be reasonable. The librarian salary and assistant salaries are their current rates plus the 3% COA increase for next year. The benefits, you know, the ones that are salary related automatically calculate. Anything like workers' comp or anything like that, Lisa will have to come in and update those numbers at a later date. Let's see. Oh, the IT library computer,
So we better
Manager,
change that.
yep. that will become the
Right.
$700 per month. Okay,
Ouch.
yeah. And
And that housekeeping.
computer software, I mean, she told me exactly what that should be, kind of.
Mhm.
Housekeeping, we'd already talked about the increase there. Lawn care, Mama's Garden. Let's see, major projects. We just,
What's happening there?
yeah, left that there. I mean, it wasn't part of the budget, but we assume that you're probably gonna have something going forward.
That's what we should think about then.
Yeah.
Furniture replacement outside.
I didn't build any increases necessarily, any
Good shit.
inflation or anything into the telephone, library postage, interlibrary loans have increased. Library advertising has dropped down because we're not doing it in the Islander any longer. Educating training, most of the training is now done online versus traveling for conferences. And then library supplies, printer paper, you know, staples, magnets, toiletries, whatever. And then.
Yeah.
What's that? Lip balm.
We haven't had to buy any
I like
yet.
the lip balm.
They're contributed by Planned Parenthood.
Oh, that's right. So we don't have to buy it.
And basically, library books, audios, we sort of rolled the budget forward from the prior year. Computer hardware, we're not assuming we're not gonna purchase any more laptops, so we brought that back down. Grant expense again, offset with the grant income. So
Well done.
that's the budget.
Thank
And
you.
it'll all send it back with the revisions and any further notes and the 3% increase, and I'll send it back out.
So again, we have to submit this by the end of October, and we don't have another board meeting to vote
Mhm.
to
Correct.
approve an amended budget.
Okay.
So how are we going to manage this? Are we gonna have to have a special meeting before the end of October?
Well, how much
do
has to
the
change?
Budget?
The IT.
So
IT?
the IT, I'm gonna add a 3% to the library fuel.
Right.
And then just the $700.
I mean, it seems like we need to at least double the IT line.
Yeah,
Well, you'll do the math. 'Cause It's,
700.
well, it's gonna be 700 plus what
Yeah.
we're thinking it would be some sort of an increase.
Right,
It will be 20, it'll be after November of 25, they should give us another increase unless it's a
Right.
3-year.
so if I add 3% to
salary.
that,
And we started for
3
1
years.
year.
Yeah, okay.
oh,
So-
That's what that was I used the VLCT template and that was recommended. You start with a 1-year contract and then you move into a 3-year.
oh, so it's not a 3-year.
Not to
No.
start, it kind of made sense to me if you don't
Yeah.
like it, you're
Yeah, no.
not.
That's why I think we should we could
Yeah.
add something in there just,
add a 3%.
just in
to that.
case they raise the
Okay.
price, and
Yeah.
then we can always, we're glad to give it back,
So if she's telling us what
Right.
she's going to change, can we
Yes.
approve that as is?
Yes. I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, what big change, what surprises would there be?
There
That
should
we
be.
would have to look at.
The only other changes outside what we've discussed here would be anything that Lisa would come.
Mhm.
well, that's why I
Okay.
kind of feel like we need to see it
Yeah.
before we just say whatever changes you make will be fine, we're approving it tonight, because there's still so many questions that we're dependent on Lisa.
You can approve
So-
Roberta to finalize the budget within a variance amount. So if you've got
Well,
here,
but that
you're
might
like,
even bite us,
But,
depending on.
but the
what
only
Lisa
problem
comes
is
back
none of
with.
these things can we change,
Control.
control.
don't have
That's a good word.
Yeah,
The workers' comp insurance is one of, is like, you know, those sort of things, the unemployment insurance,
We don't have choices on that.
the library health insurance, we don't have any,
have
we don't have any,
choices.
we don't have choice. That's the only thing. It's not that it's not a good point. It
so-
is, but we don't
So we approve
have.
it the same way we approved the CD, that we leave it to
Right.
you to make the changes.
If we want to, I mean, unless
and
there's an.
something like we authorized Roberta to finalize the budget with the town treasurer. As long as the final amount does not exceed 85,000 or whatever your guys are comfortable with.
Be okay with that.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure it's 85 is the right number. I mean.
I just threw that.
I know you just threw that
She's
out.
trying to be-
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that concept, but I'm not sure.
You want to drop it
I
down?
don't want the 85 to then trip us up if in fact what Lisa comes back with or the IT comes back with is.
do you want to say
throw us
100?
to- No,
Well,
but
she's already put, you already put the IT in there.
I haven't
No,
put it
she
in.
hasn't.
No.
We
so,
have
I mean, we
IT.
just haven't done the math yet, and depending
Gotcha.
on what the workman's comp and stuff is, I don't want it to come back and be like
Gotcha.
85,750 and we say, oh, gee, sorry, you
Yeah.
know, or 86. So I don't know, maybe you say 90 or something, just because that's a safer number, but I certainly wouldn't expect it to go that high. But if we're gonna really give it to Roberta to make it, I want to make it successful, right? I mean,
And only if she's comfortable with it too,
But-
like,
Are
you
you?
know.
comfortable with that.
So could somebody make a motion?
I will move that we approve the budget, I don't know how to say this, approve the budget pending the amendments that Roberta will make and expects to hear from the town. Up to $90,000. I don't know. You have to write that better. You need to write it better.
I think we want to authorize her
Authorize Roberta.
To approve the
to
town
approve
budget.
but the library budget with the changes that we have discussed. Up to $90,000.
Can I make a
Mm-hmm.
comment? So right now we're at $80,000 and 700 times 12 is $8,400.
That's why I was worried.
So that only gives us a wiggle room of $2,000 when we hit that 90.
But the 45
Yeah,
includes your
95.
current, doesn't that include your current,
Oh, so it would only be
We have-
raising
Right.
$4,000?
We have that.
well, if that,
Okay.
if all that
Do we need to
4,500
Okay.
is just your, was it Panergy's who you're using?
Yeah,
If that is representative of only that,
okay, so then we would have more.
yeah.
So
Okay.
we're
Plus a
adding.
three- plus a-
Okay.
plus a-
Right, it's
plus a
not
3%
750, it's
inflation.
For
Yeah.
whatever.
So does
Right.
the 90 sound doable then, again?
Why not make it 95?
Yeah, I think that, because we trust Roberta.
So could somebody articulate that as a motion?
So.
Or did
I-
you want?
Well, I
Is there
want the
something
motion
else?
to not only authorize Roberta, but to say that the board is approving, not just authorizing her to make the changes, but approving whatever budget she comes up with.
Within,
Right.
within this, within the limit.
Within,
the 90.
under $95,000. So I don't know how to wordsmith that, but maybe when you're writing the minutes, I can think about it.
Well, let me, so at this point I have that we would, that the motion is to authorize Roberta to approve the library budget with the changes we discussed up to $95,000.
No, see, I would say the board approves the budget. The board is authorizing Roberta to make the changes as we discussed. And thereby approves the budget up to $95,000.
Because it's not just it's
It's
not
not
making the
just
change,
her.
Lisa,
We need to
Yeah.
approve the budget.
Right.
So
So I
we're
need to
gonna,
have
the
that-
board approves the budget up to $95,000 and authorizes Roberta to make the changes that we discussed.
and
And
changes that the town
And-
treasurer,
Changes
will
pending
provide.
town treasurer, yeah,
Yes,
the town treasurer will provide.
yes.
And in that, Betsy, does it say the 95,000?
Yes.
Okay.
So the board approves the budget up to $95,000 and authorizes Roberta to make changes we discussed in conjunction
With information provided.
with information provided by the town treasurer.
Correct.
Do we have a second? So whose was that? Was that was yours? That was Helen's, I think. Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? Okay. So our last new agenda item is, the evaluation form. And Melissa already gave some input.
Her only input
It was
was
about
about
multitasking.
multitasking through, and I think, so I make a motion, we have to make a motion for this, to remove that item about multitasking well, or whatever it says, just take it out,
Okay,
because she. was
Well,
providing
she
that-
gave a good alternative. So the line reads, handles multiple tasks simultaneously without compromising quality. And she suggested to change it to is able to prioritize tasks/projects in a manner that maintains quality.
That sounds.
mhm. So that motion is on the floor.
Do you need a motion for that, or can we just change?
I mean, we
We can change
haven't
it.
really approved the whole thing yet anyway,
Okay,
so.
all right.
Okay.
So
Are
can
we
you read that
talking
again,
about
is
the
able
whole-
to prioritize?
Yeah, here, I can, it's down at the bottom if you want to just show her that.
Is it, can you read it out to me then?
Yeah, is able to prioritize tasks/projects in a manner that maintains quality.
Are we talking about the whole evaluation, or are we just talking about Melissa's change?
The whole one, the whole, and Melissa's change is now reflected in the whole. Right?
I found it a little cumbersome. The evaluation, I thought it was, yeah, I agree with that. I think it's long, I think some of it is redundant. And I think rather than just these ratings, there. I don't know, and maybe it's just me, I prefer being able to write more. That's
Narrative.
a little bit more narrative, and I sometimes think that's a little bit more valuable than just a number, because a number is kind of random. I mean, I might give Caroline a 4 or a 5, but, or a 3, but whatever, if there's no narrative that goes with that, is that really helpful? I mean, it might be easy for someone to say, oh, hell, I got all 4s, I'm good.
But it does have a
But-
section for comments.
Yeah, but I guess,
You don't
I
think
feel like
that's
some of
major?
these ratings are just a little too, I don't know.
I've never done evaluations with numbers. I don't like them. I think nobody wants to be a 1 through 5. You know, you want a comment that tells you what you're doing well, or suggestions that would be helpful for change. That's what I think. I mean, as a person who evaluated, what do you find helpful?
I mean, I've had so many different versions of this, like at this point,
Just give her the money.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
is the most
Is there anything?
helpful?
I mean, I think that either way, like, because if I know a 5 is the best, then I know that I'm being valued and appreciated in doing my job, and that you're noticing that I'm doing my job. So I personally don't mind a number scale,
My numbers.
no.
And
And if you want to add comments that say how awesome I am also, then that's fine.
If so, for example, I had a boss who would never give a 5,
Mm,
right?
One of
No
those.
matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I could
Nobody was
walk on
perfect.
water, and this guy is not
Yeah.
gonna give me a 5. And I needed to finally know that about him, because I
Mhm.
spent years going, damn, what do I still need to do for you? You know? What more could I
Yeah.
possibly do? So I feel like the numbers might be helpful, but first of all, I felt like some of these were kind of redundant, these questions. We didn't need to have 5 or 6 out of every category, you know, thing in every category or whatever, but I just feel like there needs to really be an opportunity for us to qualify why we're saying you're a 4 and not a 5. And if it's because you just don't walk on water, that's good, but maybe you need to know that, right?
Right.
Do you all mind if I make a comment? I mean, I haven't been a part of this at all, so I'm really
Probably a good
out of
thing.
left field, but I think the reason those forms are usually geared that way, because I've been to a lot of HR trainings, are for legal purposes. If you're a big organization and you have lots of people,
Yeah, I
you
know, I've
need a
heard that too.
quantifiable way to
Mm.
rate people fairly. So And that's, our insurance company tells us all the time, the number one thing they litigate is HR issues.
Mm.
And they want job descriptions and they want employee evaluations that have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I'm gonna say the last evaluation I helped the select board do. They were very adamant. They wanted to go into an executive session and they wanted to have a discussion with the employee and they asked me to just. Come and take notes. And it's probably the best evaluation I've ever participated in. There were 3 headings. What we appreciate that you're doing, what we would like to see, I forget what they kind of called it, but it was more like, feedback, it went both ways, actually.
Kind
And
of
then the
continued focus, kind of.
And then the third one was what we would like you to work on in the next year. So there's something you walk away from. So there's still the expectation of improvement, even though you're not continuously hanging somebody at a 4.
Right.
So I'm gonna be quite blunt. That's like the exact opposite of what I learned in every training, and our insurance company is gonna want to see if anything goes to litigation, but it was probably the most helpful for the employee.
And what we appreciate you're doing.
Number one is what we, I guess do the general feedback.
Yeah.
Because in this case, it was all positive, but it doesn't have to be. So
Right.
general feedback and then areas to improve and then what we'd like to see in the next year.
But it doesn't allow for any goals that she may have, that's
Well,
the
that's what I
thing.
meant about the back and forth,
Yeah.
but under the what we'd like to see in the next year, it can go both ways. And it ended up just being those 3 headings and a series of bullet points. It was very succinct. It was 1 page. They both signed it. I don't know. It's just, I
No,
was
I like-
surprised.
I do
I
too.
agree, because I feel like also she needs the opportunity to tell us how we need to support her better. I mean,
Mhm.
we can put goals on her, we can, we can tell you a ton of stuff. But there needs to be a better feedback loop.
Mm.
It needs to be both ways. I mean, you're only gonna be really successful if you've got the support you need from this
Mhm.
board. And if we don't know, if we just throw these goals and objectives out to you and we don't follow it up with, doing our job well, then that's not really a fair evaluation either.
And that's how we did evaluations too. So
Mm.
you would get an evaluation from, you need to fill out on us. We have an evaluation from that we fill out and we sit together and talk about it.
Mhm.
Well, my husband's taking me out to dinner.
Oh, what time of So you, just a comment.
Thank you.
Using a combination of both is probably pretty standard, having the parity of numbers. Because a 4 to you might not be a 4 to me and a 5, so there's still confusion there, but it average, it overall gives you a sense of where you stand overall. If we go to I'm a proponent of a hybrid. If we go to a conversation, then we all need to have that conversation over probably several meetings before we have a conversation with the director or anyone else. So that we are being clear and concise and not in coming from 3 or 4 or
Well, I
5
think it
directions.
gets presented by one person, probably our president.
Right, but,
And we have a conversation and put everything together, but
well, no, that's
want
right,
feedback from Caroline too.
right, but that becomes. Everyone here needs to somehow have that opportunity to submit
It's a
their.
session,
Yeah, it's still it becomes, it's good, it becomes much more subjective because, and you'd present it well, that there are, among the 3 of you, there may be 3 different opinions or just not, maybe just ways of saying something or things you want to focus on. And somebody has to discern all that and come up with a consensus. And I would assume that the board needs to understand what that consensus is and what the message is before we send Diane in to say it. So there's a lot more of it's a lot more of a commitment and work to do it that
But
way.
if it's a better way to do it, why don't we do it?
I don't know, there is a better way to do
Or
it,
the whole board goes into an executive
Yeah.
session there.
but I still want the preparation in advance or it to be, like we have chaos sometimes not because we all have opinions. I don't know that it's better or not. That's just but I don't have a preference. I'm just saying that there's a benefit to having a hybrid because you have something you can kind of stand on and go, oh, okay. And then you have the reasons why. And then you have comments and you have an opportunity to build goals and objectives. And you always ask the employee to do it, but they sometimes don't like it. But anyway, I don't care. I'm just saying we need to either the suggested version takes more effort, takes more planning on our part and to get to that conciseness of what we want to praise. That's all.
We had
I'll stop
talked last
yakking.
time though, and I like what you had to say, but we had talked about the board doing the evaluation of the director and the director doing the evaluation of the assistant.
Right,
That
yeah,
we weren't
yeah,
going
we're not
to
gonna,
involve.
right, I'm not gonna do that, sorry.
But I think that having a similar process would be
Mhm.
important for Courtney or whoever.
Right,
right. That's right.
So we need to
Anyway.
come up with, we have to determine what we're gonna do now.
You have to do it right now.
Well,
Talk about it next month.
We can't discuss anything unless we discuss it in a session like this. So we do need a plan. And I think the plan would be, why don't we all fill out the evaluation forms we have? And then have a discussion, because then that's a hybrid, right? The discussion is the discussion.
So we'd go.
And then
to
you have a meeting.
executive session At the next.
Yeah. Yeah. We can do
so,
that At the end of the next meeting.
so we each fill this out, the one that we had gotten.
The one that's for the director.
For the director,
Yeah.
we fill it out individually. We go into executive session during the next meeting. Come out of executive session and I just schedule a time
Yeah.
to meet with Carolyn.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I'll send everybody an updated version of this
Okay.
with the change that Melissa asked for.
okay.
So,
But there are no changes in the evaluation of the director, are there? Did Melissa ask for changes for that?
oh, cause no, yeah, you're right. That was on the assistant director. I have
And
copies of the
The
assistant
job
director.
description is separate from the evaluation,
Right,
correct?
yeah.
So we should review that during the evaluation process, just to make sure it is. So.
And you
it's
sent
up
us
to
that
date.
job description,
Mhm.
so we look at that when we're filling this out.
Yeah, just make sure it doesn't,
Okay. Okay, good, that's a plan.
All right.
and it
Got
can
a
be as
plan.
verbal as you want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything in communications?
I have two. I will try to make them
Oh,
quick.
I'm sorry. I put it all.
Okay, the first is just, and I don't have to read it, but the Friends of the Quaker Group
Mhm.
are done meeting at the library and they
For this
sent
year?
a for this year. And they sent a very nice email thanking us for our space and saying that they enjoyed their time together, especially their little potlucks in the gazebos. Thank you, and please send along our thanks to the trustees for allowing us to use the library. It has been such a pleasure to gather in the wonderful old building.
It's beautiful. May I ask a bad question? Do they ever send us a gift, a donation?
Every year they
I thought-
typically do.
just wanna Make sure it's
Good.
in the
Yeah.
minutes.
So they just don't meet in the winter.
Nope, they, I think, do Zoom or something, so they
They've been
don't
very-
drive.
They've been very kind and
Mhm.
supportive, yeah.
And then the other thing I just want to talk about briefly is there's been lots of talk about changing the flag outside. And I just got it today in the mail. I got like a red, white and blue flag. I'm gonna move the bracket to raise it up so it can hang horizontal. So that will
Thank you so
be
much.
taken care of.
Good, 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 good. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
You're laughing at me.
No, I'm laughing. Five, but-
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
all in favor? Yes, we all
Aye.
would like this. to-
Thank you for coming,
Good
Corinne.
job.